I came back to my father's farm expecting silence, the kind of quiet that sinks into your bones, where the only sound is wind through the corn and maybe a creaky barn door. Instead, the first thing that hit me was the roar of bulldozers, the sharp beep of trucks backing up, and the smell of hot asphalt hanging in the air. And right in the middle of my pasture, in a place where my dad once grew corn and ran cattle. A damn runway was taking shape, chalk lines stretching straight as a gun barrel, and standing proud like she'd just crowned herself Queen of Oklahoma was the HOA president, Linda Harris. That was the moment I realized my week of peace had turned into a war zone. And whether she knew it or not, Linda had just declared war on the wrong man. I parked my truck and just stared for a minute, my boots crunching down on fresh tire tracks that scarred the dirt. Orange survey stakes dotted the land like some giant game of tic-tac-toe. And every few seconds, one of those workers in neon vests would pound another into the soil, not even glancing my way, like I was invisible. Then I heard her voice, that smug tone that makes you want to check your wallet. Well, John Miller finally decided to visit his little farm, she called out, strutting toward me in her heels like she owned the place. I looked at her, squinting into the sun. Improvements, she announced, sweeping her hand at the chaos. This community is moving forward, and if you want to be stuck in the past, that's your choice. My jaw clenched. Funny, I said. I don't remember asking for a runway in the middle of my cornfield. She smirked, lowering her sunglasses just enough to lock eyes with me. Progress doesn't wait for anyone. I laughed, short, bitter. So, what's next? Linda? Direct flights to Dallas, out of my backyard? She didn't flinch. She just walked away, barking orders, her voice cutting through the engines. That first night, I sat in the farmhouse with a mug of coffee, looking out across the field at the survey lines and heavy machinery parked under the moonlight. My dad's mailbox still leaned at the edge of the drive. The same rooster we'd nailed to the fence 20 years ago still swayed in the wind. This was supposed to be my break from Washington. A week to breathe. Maybe fish down at the pond. Instead, I was staring at the foundation of an illegal airstrip on family land. And the part that really made my blood boil, Linda wasn't guessing. She had blueprints, knowledge, a whole plan, like someone had whispered in her ear about how to build the perfect runway. I should have blown up right then. But I held back, because she didn't know who I really was. She thought I was just some tired farmer. But I was also director of the FAA, the man whose signature decided if runways even existed in this country. The next morning, the noise shook me awake before sunrise. Asphalt trucks lined up like an army, steam rolling off the ground as machines pressed the earth flat. I walked across the pasture until I stood right in front of her. And sure enough, Linda was there in a hard hat, arms crossed, grinning like a general surveying her battlefield. "You should be thanking us. John," she shouted over the engines. "Imagine the prestige, neighbors landing planes right across the street." I sipped my coffee, blood pressure climbing. "You mean to tell me you're building a runway here?" She didn't blink. Not just a runway, a private airstrip. A first for this state. I almost choked. "Linda, let me spell this out. You can't pour asphalt across my land because you feel like it. There are rules. There are laws. Federal laws." She waved her hand like she was swatting a fly. "Technicalities. The board approved it. Majority rules." My laugh came out sharp. A vote on my land? That's rich. What's next? You going to vote on repainting the White House? She leaned closer, voice like poison. Then sue us. By the time it drags through court, the airstrip will be finished. And if you don't like it, maybe you should sell. There it was, the threat. Sell or be crushed. She thought she had me cornered, but I just smiled and walked away, because Linda had no idea she'd just poked the only bear that could end her little dream. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't doubt myself in those early days. The noise never stopped. The dust coated everything. Even my morning coffee tasted like tar. I sat at the kitchen table one night. Letters from the HOA spread out in front of me. Bogus fines for leaving farm equipment in my own pasture. Threats about obstructing community progress. I felt like I was being pushed into the ground, same as that asphalt, and for a moment, I thought, maybe I should just walk away, sell the land, leave the past behind, let her have her playground for rich folks with little planes. But then I looked out the window at the fence my father had built with his bare hands, thought about the storms he fought off, the harvests he saved, the sweat he poured into this place. If he never gave up, why the hell should I? My chest burned with anger. But under that was something steadier. A decision. Linda could push, threaten, lie. But she didn't know the card I was holding. And when I played it, she'd crumble. The HOA meeting was the turning point. Beige walls, burnt coffee smell, a room full of folding chairs, and me, the supposed farmer's son, sitting in the back, while Linda strutted to the podium like she was addressing Congress. 73% voted in favor, she announced, slapping a stack of papers down like a winning hand in poker. Progress is unstoppable. I stood up, pulled the deed to my farm from my jacket, and raised it high. This land belonged to my father before any of you ever thought about vinyl fences and HOA dues. You don't get to vote your way onto it. The room went silent, then shifted into awkward chuckles. Linda smiled that poisonous smile. Sentimental, John. But nostalgia doesn't stop progress. The anger in me almost boiled over, but I leaned in, voice steady. You might bully people into repainting mailboxes, but when it comes to airspace, you're not in charge. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt breaking through. She tried to slam the gavel, adjourn the meeting, but the whispers in the room told me something had cracked. People were starting to wonder, maybe Linda had finally gone too far. After that, I became two men, farmer by day, investigator by night. I bought trail cameras, hid them by the cattle gate, the pond, the oak tree. Every night I checked footage, bulldozers ripping up the land, workers hammering signs that read, "Future HOA Runway." I collected witness statements. 2, Mrs. Thompson, an old widow, signed with trembling hands that she hadn't slept in weeks, with the windows rattling. Mark, a young father, said his kids woke at 2 a.m. from the noise. I even caught Linda bragging to investors, promising hangar space for $10,000 a head. Every word, every photo, every signature, I stacked into a file thick enough to bury her twice over. And the whole time, she drove by in her shiny black SUV, rolling her window down to smirk. Still resisting. John? I wanted to laugh out loud, if only she knew how close she was to the cliff's edge. Then came the flyer. Bold letters announcing the grand opening of the HOA private runway. Ribbon, cutting, champagne, a demonstration flight. The audacity almost knocked me off my chair. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was inviting the world to watch her crown herself. That was my moment. I made one last call to Washington. Get the cease and desist order ready. I told a colleague who owed me a favor. I want it delivered the day she cuts that ribbon. He chuckled. You're letting her throw a party before you shut her down? Oh yeah, I said. The bigger the stage, the harder the fall. The morning of the event was hot enough to melt steel. SUVs lined the dirt roads, neighbors in folding chairs, banners strung up that read, "Welcome to the future." And there she was, Linda, in a crisp white blazer, sunglasses flashing in the sun, microphone in hand like she was hosting her own coronation. "Ladies and gentlemen," she boomed, "today we make history." The crowd clapped, some half-hearted, some dazzled by the spectacle. She raised her glass of champagne, to progress, to prestige, to the future. And then, as if the universe wanted to help my case, a small twin-engine plane circled overhead, lining up for the strip. Linda spread her arms wide. History is landing here today. That was my cue. I stepped forward, boots crunching on the gravel, my old ball cap shading my eyes. The murmurs spread as I walked straight to the ribbon, and when I pulled my badge from my pocket, holding it high, the crowd gasped. "My name is John Miller," I said, voice carrying over the pasture. "And I am the director of the Federal Aviation Administration. As of this moment, this runway is officially shut down." Silence fell so heavy you could hear the pilot throttle back in the sky. Then chaos, investors shouting, neighbors whispering, cameras flashing. The plane above veered hard, pulling away from the strip, and the sound of its engines fading was sweeter than any applause. Linda's face turned pale. You can't do this," she stammered, microphone squealing. I stepped closer, calm as ever. "Linda, I'm the only man in this country who can. And I just did." The sheriff's deputies moved in, paperwork in hand, snapping photos, collecting contracts. Investors stormed Linda, waving their glossy brochures, demanding answers. Neighbors shouted about years of bogus fines, accusing her of pocketing fees. Linda ripped off her sunglasses, eyes darting like a cornered animal. "This is a misunderstanding," she babbled. I raised the cease and desist order high enough for the cameras to catch. "Correction, this is a federal violation, fraudulent, unsafe, and it ends today." The paper slipped from her hands, floating to the asphalt like a white flag. And with that, the queen of the HOA was dethroned. I didn't stay for the fallout. I watched her stumble, grasping at excuses, while the crowd turned against her, while investors threatened lawsuits, while deputies asked her to step aside. I just stood there long enough to see her empire crack, the very stage she built crumbling beneath her. Then I turned and walked away, the noise of applause and shouting behind me fading into the sound of wind across the corn. And in that moment, I knew my father's farm had survived again, just like it always did. And the lesson is simple. No amount of arrogance or votes or shiny promises can bulldoze the truth, because the law will always land harder than ego.